Yeah, there's an actual day going on. Thanks one and all for being here this afternoon. We've got just about everybody here who's going to be here, so we might as well get started. I'll go through the roll call, please. Yusuf Ahmad. Thank you. Debbie Alsop.
Here.
Terry England, not yet, but is expected. Christine Fisher.
Here.
Mike Brandt, present, teacher. Tony Hobson, thank you. Gary Lindgren is an expected absence. Micah Cameras. Toylan O'Neill.
Here.
Hello, Toylan. Odell Owens.
Here.
Cheryl Rose. Huh?
Here.
Here, but leaving.
Here, yeah, that's right.
Not a meeting.
He has a note from his doctor. Laura San Regret. Pastor Tate is an expected absence. Vanessa White is not yet here. Sally Westheimer. Thank you, Sally. So here we all are. I would ask you to, for the agenda, to look at the agenda that it was at your place, not in the pre-read. There's one small but mighty change, namely that we'll be approving the audit. So if you look at the material that was at your place, you'll see that that has been added there. So that's the only alteration of the agenda which I'm aware. So I'd entertain, yes, an approval, a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Thank you, Odell. Second, that was quick on the draw, Laura. Thank you. Those in favor of approving the agenda, aye. Aye. Those opposed or abstaining. So on a motion made by Odell and seconded by Laura, the agenda was unanimously approved, which brings us to the minutes of our last board meeting. Those were in the pre-read. I'm sure you had the opportunity to study them. So are there comments that people would like to make? I know Debbie approached me and said that she had passed along some changes in the minutes that were, by and large, fairly small. Do you want to speak to anything beyond that?
Yeah, there was a couple that I'd like to point out. On page 2, under public comments, the third bullet that starts with Bianca Edwards, if we drop down to the sentence that said, it was requested there is more transparency, that it was requested there be more transparency. There is a difference. She requested that there be more transparency. The other thing on page 3, under 5, and I'll go real quickly, Odell Owens asked how the $450K in savings will be directed to, and my comment was, what's the source of the $450? It doesn't have a context. And the last one, I think, is an important comment that was made on page 5 when we were talking about the governance committee, and we had talked briefly about the second bullet, changing the meeting schedule, and the committee discussed rescheduling the board meetings to every other month beginning in August. And Father Graham made a comment after that he suggested that the CPP board meeting schedule be discussed closer to the September annual meeting. Those are the things that were more substantive that I pointed out.
Thank you, Debbie. Does anybody else have any comments they would like to make with respect to the minutes? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion then to approve them.
So moved.
Thank you, Debbie. It's always more official when you make that motion, I think. And the second.
Second.
Thank you, Cheryl. All those in favor, please.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed or abstaining? So on a motion made by Debbie Alsop, seconded by Cheryl Rose, the minutes were unanimously approved, which brings us to our mission moment. And Lauren's on the job, it looks like. Here.
We have 2 mission moments today, actually. Since we're just opened up our first cohort with Teacher Promise grants, we wanted to spotlight for the board 2 providers. We have 2 directors here with us, Beverly Blossom from Little Blossoms and Louise Williamson from YMCA Christ Child, both of whom have several teachers enrolled in the program. to talk a little bit about what it's meant for their teachers and then what the process has been like for them. I will say, as they're coming up here, a huge thanks to both of them. They've both been incredibly helpful as we've been ironing out the kinks in our process. And their feedback has been great for how we're actually refining the application process moving forward. So, huge thanks to both of you.
Good afternoon. My name is Beverly McGlasson. I am the site administrator for Little Blossoms Academy. We are a school that is under Cincinnati Union Bethel. We are the College Hill site. We currently have 76 children enrolled. Out of that 76 children, 62 are being served under Cincinnati Preschool Promise. So we have a large number of families receiving services. So first of all, I want to say thank you for that. This would be 62 children that may not be getting access to preschool. Under the Teacher Promise Grant, we actually have 7 of our 10 teachers receiving the grant. So thank you for that. I feel like it's been a teacher motivator. So when Lauren asked us to speak tonight, I actually went to the teachers and said, what does this mean to you? I know what it would mean to me as a teacher, but you're actually getting it. So I have a few of their comments. I'm just going to kind of read through. I won't read them all. But one teacher responded, the Teacher Promise Grant means extra support to me. It makes me feel rewarded for the quality work that I do. So teachers are seeing that this is important to them because somebody's recognizing what we've done for many years and the high quality that we're putting into our programs. It matters to somebody now. So that's huge. I think that's huge. And I found a similarity when I was reading over these. When teachers are with little people, they care for them, they nurture them, they become part of their lives. So it's not just there was a similarity that all the teachers somehow came back to the kids. So I thought it was really cool. This teacher responded, I can put some of that money toward my student loans to help pay them off sooner. I can also afford to do a little something to pamper myself and buy things to do special activities with my classroom. This teacher says it means that teachers are being thought of about and appreciated more. For me, it means I'll have extra help to get supplies and tuition fees for my associate's degree and then be able to go back sooner for my bachelor's. So those kind of had a common theme of going back and helping in the classroom. And we do fun classroom supplies, but teachers always just tend to go get that little extra. So they all go back to that little extra. So once again, I want to say thank you. Thank you for allowing us to be part of this program and bringing those 7 teachers on.
Good evening. I'm Louise Williamson. I'm the program director for the YMCA Christ Child. I have some very similar things to speak on, but I also wanted to talk about our staff. Our staff is a staff of 5. So 2 out of our 5 teachers were qualified for the cohort monies period. And they were super. They came down to my office. I mean, and they submitted their stuff like right away. They were so super excited. They're still excited. They're in the process of applying also for the, I think there's grant money for tuition for bachelor's degrees, CEAs, master's degrees. So we're very pleased. Preschool Promise has filled the gap to help us provide a lot of good quality service, period. So our families are very grateful. They're very happy. And I also want to thank some of the board members who came out to tour our center. That was a great day. I also want to thank Flo and Brandy for Preschool Promise. I mean, they stay on top of things. They help us to really get things going, fill a lot of gaps of things that when you're director of a child care center, period, or supervisor or principal of a school, there's a lot of things to do. So we get a lot of help. So I just wanted to say thank you so very much.
Before you both step away from the podium, Were you going to say a little bit more, Lauren, by way of conclusion?
I'm just going to thank them.
Oh, okay. We'll let you do that in a moment. But sometimes people on the board or others have questions that they'd like to ask, and so I want to make sure that they have an opportunity to do that. So anything from any board member? It's good to see that this is having the kind of impact that we had hoped it would have. It's obviously very early, much work to do in front of us, but thank you for bringing in some good early returns for us. So Lauren, you want to thank them for us?
Thanks for having us. Nice to see you.
Once more. Thank you for your good work on behalf of the community's children. It's wonderful to meet you. This would normally bring us to the public comments part of the agenda, except that there are no public comments. Not yet, anyway, I might observe, because we're going to be having a presentation later, some feedback about the wage pilot comments that we'll hear later. So we'll move right then into the committee and work group updates. Shyla, do you want to tee this up, or?
Yes, so we actually had a lot of committee and work group throughout the last month, and so wanted to make sure that this board was current on what has been going on in each of the big bucket work stream areas. So I will turn it over to Flo to talk tuition assistance first.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, Flo.
Good afternoon. So I'm very excited to tell you about what's going on with TA. Not only will I speak about TA, I'll speak about outreach enrollment and along with family engagement. I want to start with family engagement. As you all may know, or some of you may not know, we have been doing pastries for preschoolers. And so basically we have been going out to our community providers saying, hey, here we are, let's talk to the parents. But the idea behind this was to get the board members kind of involved so they can see the difference in the quality centers that we serve and the different needs that the centers require. And so far, we, as Ms. Louise spoke, we came to her center, we've been to Water Lily, we did Corbin, and so a couple of the board members have attended, such as Ms. Detti and Micah and Christine. I thank you guys for that. We have currently right now 52 centers as of today that we're working with. I need for board members to come out and help with pastry for preschoolers. Wesley was scheduled for one. I had to cancel it because I did not have a board member to come out and to be present. And the thing about it is the families, they know what preschool promise staff looks like. This is an opportunity for them to speak to someone on a higher level, which is what they're asking for. Even the centers, when I tell them, hey, we're coming, we're bringing board members, they get really excited because they want you all to see what it is the preschool promises help them with and how their centers are growing. And so coming up, we have Wesley scheduled for the 3rd, and we're hoping to get Ms. Terry England's center scheduled for this upcoming month. And so what I'm asking is, I'm just asking for help and a pull to say, hey, you know, you guys sign up so they can see and the families can meet you guys, because they want to know what's going on and they want someone to listen to their concerns other than this flow. So I'm just making an appeal to you, asking you to help with that mission. Yes, sir.
Flo, is there a schedule you can provide?
I can. I will get that to my wonderful executive director, and she'll get that over to you guys.
Great, thank you.
Far as tuition assistance, as I said today, we have 52 centers. As of this afternoon, Divine was approved. We're very excited about that. Give a clap up for quality improvement. They received 3 stars, so now they're eligible for tuition assistance. They're in the Walnut Hills area, and we also have Miss Julie's Nurse Julie's child care, and she is located in the Westwood area. So very excited about that. In total, we have 2,955 children that we have serviced from this point. And so that is great because that is almost double what we did. I think last year our numbers were like 15, so we're almost there. Not exactly there yet, but last year, at the end of the year, we were a total of 15, and that was including CPS and CPP. As of now, as I said, we're 2,955.
And to clarify that, Flo, that's cumulative, so that's the first academic year and the second academic year. So that's 1,341 served last academic year, and we're at over 1,600 this year. So if you talk about since inception of the program, we're nearly at 3,000 students impacted through tuition assistance. So great news.
Thank you for that,
Great news.
Charlotte. And currently on total for just community providers, we have funded 967 students. So I want to give everybody a clap in the room for supporting PCC. Outreach enrollment. Enrollment begins April the 1st. We're very excited about this upcoming year. We've already started scheduling visits with centers to get the children re-enrolled for the upcoming year. We anticipate even more children than what we currently have this year, just because of the different venues that we're going for taking place, our partnership with Children's Hospital, our different partnerships in the community, our new marketing, community engagement and marketing manager. She has a lot of ideas about how to reach the churches. So we're very excited. There's a lot of things coming up. We're ready for popsicle preschool pop-ups. That's a mouthful. And that's where we're going in the neighborhood with our tents, and we pop up with popsicles in hopes of getting parents and children more information about the Preschool Promise program, and in hopes of getting them signed up for the upcoming school year. Any questions? Yes, ma'am.
I just want to thank you, Flo, for your update, and I visited one of the parents for pastries. I'm sorry I haven't been able to go again, but what I found was exactly what she said. The parents were very open and wanted to have conversation with the board members, and Micah and Christine, you might want to jump in, but thank you for structuring that opportunity. I'd be interested in the pop-up, popsicles, whatever. If you want board members to come.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And then, one more, just a bit. Tomorrow we have our second annual provider luncheon. It actually will be held here this year. Last year was at the Cooks program, which I'm always excited about because that's building partnerships outside of the CPP realm with other organizations. And so we're going to start that around 11:30 a.m. tomorrow. We're going to have, we had RSVP for about maybe 39 people. And so we're excited, to go over the new updates. And there are a lot of different changes that are taking places that I think a lot of times people don't think about. So when we think about, and I just want to paint a picture for you guys quickly, when we think about a mom and she's coming to do a preschool promise application, and the mom has more than one child, that is like 2 or 3 applications that the mom has to do. And that right there sometimes can be a little bit overbearing for mom. So what we did this year is we did additional spaces for additional children. And so now if mom has 2 children that are applying to preschool promise, she can actually do it in 1 application. All she has to do is turn in the information, but that cuts down that, hassle for mom. And so those are things that, we're sitting in the room, but we don't really think about how difficult that may be for mom to fill out all those different papers and to be like, okay, this is over here, this is over there. So, I want you all to know that even when we're in the building and not in the field, we are still in our office trying to figure out how do we make this program easier, more flexible, and more accessible for parents to get into the CPP program. And that's it for me, guys.
Thank you, Flo. So this brings us to the next item, which is the equity plan. That was in the pre-read. You recall we mentioned that a month ago that this would be forthcoming. The executive committee had a chance last week to review this. We made some comments on it. Originally, we were thinking of bringing this to you for your approval today, but thought since this will function as a kind of guiding policy, it was best not to do that, rather to have one meeting where you can provide feedback. Then we'll bring forward a clean copy revised per your comments for your approval next month. Before I turn it over to Lauren to speak more about it, what I would say is that it's important to understand that this is obviously, it's a very theoretical document, right? Hard to know exactly how to hold ourselves accountable except in these general kinds of feel-good sorts of ways. Once this is in place, something that Shiloh and her team will do is build out very concretely and specifically what this means in terms of the various work streams that we have, as well to build in ways in which we'll measure to see how well we're doing what we've said we're going to do. So all that will come subsequent to our approval of this document. I did want you to know that, though, that would be forthcoming. So, Shiloh, is there anything else you'd like to say before we let
No, other
Lauren
than
take it
depending
away?
on what the feedback is today, we should even be able to have a first pass of what that rubric and graphical application might look like by the next board meeting. So you've got continued detail.
Okay, Lauren?
Yeah, I think that's great. Hopefully you all had a chance to at least eyeball it. As a little bit of background, we also shared, and we do reference in this draft, the CPS equity policy. So CPS does have an equity policy, and we're using that as the foundation of this document. So that document really speaks specifically to the needs of the diverse student body and the many kinds of needs that the student body has. And CPS's dedication to meeting all of those needs. So what we felt like we needed to do as Preschool Promise was layer on top of that document some additional areas where we feel like we need to focus. So you'll see specifically, obviously, the needs of a very diverse set of children, but also diverse provider types. Because we are dealing with community providers and we have single-site and multi-site and family child care providers. The needs of different areas of the city, with a particular focus on those quality gap areas. We have a specific reference to the needs of single-site and family child care because of historical investment in primarily multi-site centers, so we called that out. And then also around the teachers in those community providers and the needs of those teachers. So that's the sort of how we got here, and I think, as Shiloh and Father Graham said, as soon as we have a kind of collective understanding this is the direction we want to head and what we want to uplift, then we can build out the framework around it.
So the floor, hearing that, then the floor is open for specific comments that people might want to make so that we can strengthen the document. Yusuf?
I actually have a question first.
Sure, feel free.
So the policy also states this, and I also read throughout the policy the word inequities.
Mm-hmm.
And inequity can mean a lot of things. Are they defined anywhere?
So inequity is not, equity is. So yes and no. I think we drew on the CPS board policy for the definition of equity. And I think for inequities, it's actually pretty well built into their definition. Can we find the line?
It's not my first language, but I know this much.
Yeah.
The word inequity is not the true opposite of the word equity.
True, yeah. I think that we are looking at, when we're looking at historical inequities, the ways that we see unequal outcomes today among different kinds of providers or children in different neighborhoods. And I think that is pretty well addressed, at least in the CPS policy.
So I would just humbly submit, if it's appropriate, to just define inequities, so we know exactly what we're trying to address.
Sure.
Lauren's comment comes from, once again, the underlying CPS document that's sort of behind this one, which in point of fact includes what, 30 terms or something like that, which it defines. And so it would be perhaps useful for us to clip those documents together, but to add a definition for inequities where one is lacking. Other questions with respect to the document, comments, feedback?
Graham, I had a comment.
Feel free.
I had a chance to look at this at the executive committee, and I want to thank Lauren for her careful listening. She got a lot of feedback that day, and probably others afterward. And so I think the strategy to have, a first reading and second reading is a good one. But this document has evolved significantly
has.
in a week.
Well, hearing
Could we get a copy of the
The
board
CPS.
policy 2255?
Sure.
yeah.
We'll provide a copy of the board policy itself and also the definitions, just so you can see kind of what this is built upon.
The CPS board policy?
Yes.
Correct,
Yeah.
correct.
Has this gone before board, the policy, especially the policy committee, CPS policy committee?
CPP's policy? No.
No, this one, the CPS's.
CPS's policy, I would imagine
It
would,
would already have been.
it
I would
has been
presume,
adopted, I
yeah. Has a number and all
Would
that.
CPP's policy go before CPS board?
We might simply share it with
We
them as a
can do
point of
that
information.
informationally,
Right,
sure.
right. There's nothing secret
Right,
about it.
Right, right, and according to Robert's Rules of Order, you have to have several readings before you would do it, finalize it, and so.
Well, how about this? I don't hear comments being made, perhaps, and I don't mean to cut off any comments that you in point of fact want to make, but that insofar as we'll be getting you the underlying CPS documents with the term sheet, so to speak, at that time, we can send this out as well, so you can see the fit at a glance without having to go searching your files to find this document. You may then, at that point, have comments that you would like to make, and we would encourage you via email to provide Lauren and Shiloh with that feedback. Or you may have something you want to say now. Going once, going twice. Sold. All right, Lauren, good job on this, as Debbie said. The only other thing I'd like to mention under the executive committee bullet is that by now you should have received the evaluation material from my assistant, Mary Lang, and so there are three things in that email, three attachments in that email. One is the evaluation instrument itself. A second is the OGSM document. Third is a kind of a summary of the year, narrative summary of the year under the main headings of the work that we do that Shiloh provided for you. And so we do ask that you have those back by no later than April 5. Is that the right date? April 5, so that gives you a couple weeks, but don't be like my students and let it go until the end. So look forward to receiving that feedback from you, so thank you for that. So the cost of quality work. Lauren, it's you again, it looks like.
All right, I think we have one more slide. Sorry, there should be a map on this. There it is. We don't have a huge update from the cost of quality committee. I did want to just show you as a point of reference because we are still talking about this first cohort of grant recipients. We had a request from the Promise Forward board meeting to map the distribution of those recipients. So these are the recipients mapped. I know it's a little small. I'd be happy to share the actual file if anybody is interested. We are currently working on an evaluation of the equity of the implementation. So that should be ready to share with you all in April. And then in regards to, actually backing up one, and then we're making pretty significant edits to the application process for the application that will open up on April 1st, the April 1st through the end of April window. Based on feedback we've gotten that it, for many teachers, felt too long or too cumbersome, so we're cutting it almost in half in size. So hopefully that will reduce those barriers to getting more teachers into the program. In terms of the quality improvement pilot, that is still under review by our legal counsel, so I don't have a lot to discuss about that right now. Just know that we do want to move forward, and Brittany and I are going to be working together to look at how we might combine the efforts of cost quality, with quality improvement, so that we're not working independently on the same issues. And that's about it from cost quality. Questions?
Thank you. Anything you want to add to that?
You know, I would just say that we continue to recognize the interconnectedness of the work, and we're trying to continue to operate thusly. So the strategy that we talked about last month, I think, naturally dovetails into our addressing both some next step efforts in cost of quality and some next step efforts in the wage pilot for QI. That said, I do want to mention that Lauren met with the P4EC providers
right.
recently, and so maybe you want to tee that up
Thank
before
you,
we
yes.
turn it over to them.
Before we turn it over to Bianca and Ellen, that was the other part of what I was going to do, is give you some context for this presentation. So even though the pilot that we are working on for our quality improvement providers is under a legal review, so it's sort of on ice for the moment, what you are going to hear about today is some feedback from people for early childhood. I met with them about a month ago to discuss and talk through what we were thinking in terms of a pilot for those quality improvement providers. And that is included. There's two things that are included in the board pack. One is just sort of a memo that provides some context around the pilot development, and then the actual draft of the pilot. And it was proposed to take the form of a staff support fund rather than direct-to-teacher grants, to provide providers a little more flexibility in how they support their teaching staff. So in response to that, P4EC had some feedback. They've presented this feedback to the CPS board at the CPS at their last meeting, and are here to share it with you today.
Ellen and Bianca, I think you're on. Thank you for being here today.
Well, thank you guys so much for having us here tonight. We also going to give you a little background before I see. I think you guys have seen us a couple of times here. But then we're going to dive right in. So we've been a long process, as you guys know. We've had that study that we presented to you all. And then we've had ongoing, consistent conversations with folks in meetings and events and one-on-one conversations. And so we're going to just share that feedback, especially as you guys are developing the quality improvement grant program. Please bear with me, I'm recovering, so my voice is a little bit out of it. I'm Bianca Edwards with the English Project and one of the parents and members of P4EC, which is People for Early Childhood. We are a coalition of members that are currently up there. So we work with the Cincinnati NAACP, with the Cincinnati Youth Co-op Initiative, which Ellen is a part of, the Cincinnati Educational Justice Coalition, the Cincinnati Federation of Teachers, and the English Project. And what we did is back in 2014 through 16, when we were having conversations with everyone, we tried partnership was first coming up with what is Preschool Promise, what could it look like, what could it be. We were some of the original founding members as part of community conversations that happened around what do you need from an early childhood program, what do you as a parent need as far as access, what do you as an educator need as far as development, and what do you as an owner need as far as small business support. And so when we originally came together, we were talking about those three things, the access, viability, and quality. And so that kind of dovetailed into having, for the English Project, 47,000 community conversations, where we actually registered 47,000 voters, knocked on their door, had a bunch of conversations with them, and also in the congregations that we serve around what it actually means for people to get what they need from their early child care system. It also looked like, as far as all of the coalition members, we knocked on about 100,000 doors in 2016 alone to have those conversations. That also included about 2,000 conversations within congregations, so having a lot of pastors talk to their members around what it actually means for them to get what they need from their community. what type of support they need, what are they currently receiving and not receiving from different entities such as Cincinnati Public Schools, such as their community providers, and really just join together to have a unified voice. So the vision for P3C is that we are parents, educators, and owners who are partnering for learning and equity in early childhood. Our purpose is to build a powerful voice for the community-based early learning centers and providers along all sides working families to make sure that we're winning when it comes to equity, stability, and access for all of the children in Cincinnati. So we do work with parents that have kids ranging from age 0 to 6, but our focus around Preschool Promise has been parents with children 3 to 4 years old, or those that are currently entering or exiting a preschool program. We're comprised of stakeholders for community-based early learning spaces serving working families that interact daily with children below the age of 5. We're also speaking up for ourselves. It guarantees the decisions that are made about our families are actually made with our families instead of for them. So we make sure that we create space in people for early childhood for parents, educators, and owners to come to safe spaces and have those conversations. Why are we here today? We're here today to demonstrate a commitment to success of preschool expansion and to Preschool Promise. We're also sharing recommendations from our people for early childhood stakeholders. And then we're also asking CPP to help uplift families, educators, and community members in the decisions that you all make on a regular basis regarding the program. So the hope behind the promise. As I mentioned earlier, we knocked on about 100,000 doors. Currently we have about, in our closed private group, we have about 16 members in our closed private group that interact on a regular basis and uplift either their stories around their families and what it's like for them to have to provide that money necessary to be able to afford a quality center, or what it looks like for an educator to make $8 to $12 an hour, and what the difference would be for them to make $15 an hour. And so when we originally formed, and why did we get behind issue 44 when it first started, was because we believed in family sustaining jobs. We believed that looking at living wages, starting at about $15 up to parity with Cincinnati Public Schools. We also look at how drastically wages impact the quality that a program can provide. As you all know, since you've been doing this work, wages are a huge factor as to whether you're going to have high teacher turnover or not. So being able to retain a teacher means that you need to be able to compete with CPS. And CPS starts off paying $23.23, and that doesn't actually include the benefits package that they receive. So a lot of our community providers that are only making $8 to $12 an hour, we've seen them leave and actually go to Cincinnati Public Schools for that reason, even though they would rather stay a community provider. The commitment to quality, we've worked with the Workforce Development Council and looked at what quality improvement would mean as far as dollars. What does it look like for staff who actually has the ability to say, this is what being part of the workforce means to me, and this is how I need to be supported. And then also the commitment to racial equity. When you all were talking about the equity policy earlier, one of the things that we constantly fought for is racial and economic equity. Just because we know from the foundation reports from GCF, we know from the women's studies how drastic of a pay parity there is between women in the whole field and what it looks like for men in fields. On average, women are paid about $1 less in general, and this field is substantially filled by women and women of color. So making sure that they get that support necessary is extremely important. Also looking at putting low-income families first. When we talk about equity, we also look at what it means for the racial outcomes. When we're looking at school outcomes, when we're looking at work outcomes, what it actually means for communities of color in Cincinnati and how they've been consistently divested from across almost the story of Cincinnati, and what it actually would mean for this program to actually invest in communities of color and in communities that have low income and low resources who are living in poverty. So those things are really important for us. And also look at the care deserts. We know we have certain neighborhoods that receive far less services and far less resources that actually need them. And that if we were looking at equity, we'd be saying that some people, if you imagine 3 people on a box, and you're looking at equity as being a person that doesn't need a box, Looking at equity doesn't mean that each person has the same size box. It means that some have a bigger box than others so that they can get what they need and be able to reach the same status. So the success of the program so far, from what our parents and our educators and owners have come back, and the last time we had talked was when we had updated these numbers with Shiloh, just to make sure that we had it correct. But those are from the Preschool Promise program. So the 1,476 students enrolled, 93 programs with 50 being community programs and 43 being CPS, our tuition assistance. We have 95 quality improvement programs and 22 programs that have been awarded a star increase. And I know that those numbers are constantly shifting and changing for you guys. But we also looked at the tuition assisted wage pilot as having 47 enrollees at that point in time. And we've also been knocking on doors and having conversations with community members who work in the field to ask them, did you take advantage of this? If so, why did you take advantage? If not, why didn't you? And looking at other ways that we can partner with CPP to help uplift that piece, because you guys have an amazing staff. There's also a lot of community members that have volunteer-run bases that we can reach a lot more doors. So that's kind of the hope behind the promise and why we do this work. And so with that, we're also going to talk about why are the $15 an hour wages so important. They're uplifted here. The effects on quality. It also mitigates the cliff effect. Most families that we've talked to, most of the parents who have stayed in the education field say that they would hands down rather be making about $15 an hour and know that they're losing some other benefits because they can actually do more with that $15 an hour. We've also talked to some of them that have had to leave the field because they couldn't afford to maintain their families on the wages that they were making. So we talked to them about what are the things that you actually need in order to sustain your family. What does it look like for you to be able to pay all of your bills and be able to do the things that actually the women that were here earlier mentioned, which was take care of your classroom and pay for supplies. What would it look like if you had enough income to be able to do all of those things well? And then also it fulfills the promise for furthering economic justice. When we knocked on those 100,000 doors, this was one of the big selling points of the program. It was making sure that people had quality wages and making sure that people knew that this program was going to help them do that and help them reach that goal. So what do we think you can do? And then I'm going to turn it over to Ellen. But support community providers in Cincinnati Preschool Promise and raising wages for all teachers with urgency. The pilot program currently suggests 2 years, and one of the recommendations we've had that Ellen's going to talk about is making that a 6-month pilot program. Learning as much as you can, as quickly as you can, and then rolling it out. So by the time we're knocking on doors, we can tell people this is what has happened as far as wages, and this will be something that actually uplifts the promise and almost guarantees that it would actually be voted on again and supported by the community. Shorten the length of the pilot program. And then base the wage increase off of career pathway levels instead of the teacher assistant. And we know that that is a huge recommendation because there's been a lot of discussion around lead teachers and assistants and who actually qualifies. And then the last is to allow educators to decide what they want and how to participate instead of only going through the providers. One of the things with P3C is that we really believe in building unity. And right now, a lot of different parts of the field are separated, either because people are isolated because they work at home when they're the educators and the business providers, or because parents don't think they have a right to say how much they can or cannot afford and what quality actually means to them. And then when we look at educators have said over and over again, a lot of times we aren't asked what we need. People either go to the parents or they go to the actual the provider or the business owner. A lot of times as an educator in the classroom, my owner is the only person asking me what I need, or my parents are the only ones. So actually having that commitment from this board is extremely important. With that being said, I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Ellen.
We thought it would be easiest to understand in terms of the recommendations by just trying to put it kind of side by side with what we had received to date when we met with Warren and other meetings, just to see some of the differences that we might suggest from our stakeholders. So you see there is at the CPL level that they, participants at small-based centers and programs and managed childcare providers in the QI program that again, based on detail levels and not necessarily be your assistant, because you have folks who've invested in their education a whole lot, and are, still maybe they're in an assistant position. This is just giving you an example of, like, let's say we were to spend $1.6 million versus $500,000 on this, which feels like that was, we need to be spending a proportional amount if this is our promise to the community. And so that would impact about 146 teachers if that was the case. But I think one of the biggest differences that you can see here is that on a yearly basis, instead of it being $2,000 a year, which would put that, if the average wage right now is about $11.25 with assistants and leads, that puts them right smack dab in that cliff effect. And so they'd be making around, a little less than $1 an hour in terms of an increase. And so they'd be making about $12.21 an hour versus what would really be needed to get them to that promise of 15 is about between $10,000 to $11,000 over the course of a year. That includes kind of the employer taxes, and so that would be getting them right above that 15, getting close to what the average is then for the lead teachers in the tuition assistance program. So that's what people feel like they truly need if they're not going to be stuck in that cliff effect, is that they need enough investment to really help with them out of those situations. The other thing that was really important to them is that that the structure go through the teacher, that the teacher decide what type of benefit. Whereas obviously they love their administrators, they love their directors, but they feel like they know best for themselves what they truly need, and so that they should be making that decision in terms of whether it's going to go for overtime, or it's going to go increasing their pay, or some other type of benefit, and then that go directly into their paycheck versus them having to be kind of a contractor and have to file taxes and have just that be really complicated for them. So that was a concern. I think another concern, folks, was just how long this pilot might be. If it's a pilot, it's something that we're hopefully learning from, and that this is going to be something that will be expanded. And so people, because they feel like they've been waiting for 2+ years, want to see that this full robust program hopefully start for this next school year. So those are just some of the examples that they kind of wanted to show what they thought could be a little bit different. In terms of just a timeline, obviously we're presenting to you guys tonight. We presented to the CPS the school board about 2 weeks ago. And we've also communicated the same information to the school board. We feel like this is a joint program for you all, but we also feel like this is their levy. And so at the end of the day, we've asked them to take action if the proposal is not satisfactory and does not really help people get out of the cliff effect issue. The other thing that we want to put on your guys' radar is that we know that the budget is coming up again, that they're going to have to be deciding how much money is going to go into supporting the wages and keeping this promise to the community. And so just to make sure that a robust budget is passed for this part of the budget in terms of supporting wages. And then hopefully then in August, as we kick off this next school year, that wage support program will start, the full wage support program. And then we would also, because we know that everyone's already thinking about this, about in terms of passing issue 44, or whatever it's going to be called in the future, but we'd like to work in a collaborative alliance to support renewal, making sure that we really are kind of trying to make sure all these promises are coming to fruition. So I think some broader recommendations, and you kind of said some of these, but again, is just making sure that there's sufficient budget funds from the 2019-2020 school year, that any excess funds or unspent funds this year are really being allocated to making sure that wages happen. That you guys are already talking about this, which is really good and important, but adopt racial and economic equity policy, but then also that the importance of transparency, people feeling like they can really understand what the thinking is behind that and publish the rubric for making these policy decisions. And then I think we've said this multiple times, but it is very confusing, all these structures between CPS and CPP. So just really publishing a decision-making map so people know, hey, when I have a concern or I have a question or I want to talk to someone about this, this is where I go if I have something I need to bring up. That's everything. We've got more resources up there for you guys if you want to check out more, and a little video on equity and some of the importance of those.
Good, thank you very much. Bianca, earlier you said that you spoke with a number of your teachers about the current wage pilot and asked them if they were participating, why, and if they were not participating, why not. What did you learn, especially with respect to the second part of that question?
So why not part of it was due to, like, there was already ignorant comments, so not having time to fill it out, because that was one thing that was really awesome, was that they knew that it was available. But not having time to fill it out, one of the other challenges is that there were a few people that said, I wasn't sure if I was qualified, and I didn't have time to ask questions. There were a few people, there were 3 that I can remember that actually spoke directly with Lauren at some point in time. When she had come out to drop off applications, their owners did. So they weren't really sure if it was something that they would benefit from, since it was $2,000. They wanted it to be a little bit more, like I think Helen shares, some of the, as far as some of the income for people, it would bump them up, but maybe not enough. So that was part of the feedback that we got from the first round. And this was something that we had talked about with them even before the actual pilot went out. So that was some of the feedback before and after as to why they did it.
I can add to that. I think also one of the biggest things is that it's such a small group of people that are eligible, right? I mean, we have 585 child care businesses in the city, Cincinnati. I'm sure that number is going to go down a bit, but of that, only 52 programs right now, there's actually teachers that are eligible. So I think we've got a lot of people in P4AC that are like, this is great, but I voted for this and this isn't affecting me at all because my center is not, either, it's not 3 to 5 star rated, or they haven't been able to even get into quality improvement. So I think that's another just frustration that we hear in the community is that why isn't this serving me? Or like, I don't have control. My director or owner is in charge of doing that, but for whatever reason, they're not in the program.
Thank you. Other comments or questions?
I have a question. Thank you for the presentation, first of all. You mentioned that CPS on average pays $23 an hour, and this program, in preschool promises 8 to 12, and then you also said that there's a lot of people leave to go to CPS. What does that you mean by a lot of people? What percentage?
So I don't know, we don't have any percentage, and this is definitely, as we did all of our.
I think that fact is important.
Yeah.
Is it a 9% problem or a 90% problem?
Yeah. I don't know who would have that data necessarily, but I know that we heard it over and over again when we were doing all of our interviews for the study itself, that a lot of the program directors and owners felt like they would invest money into their staff, but then, obviously at the same time, CPS has been expanding a whole lot, and so they would lose really important qualified teachers that were helping them to maintain their star quality. And I think the other thing you see is because wages are so low, people don't only just leave for CPS, but leave for lots of different reasons, because they have to sustain their families.
I can speak to that a little bit, because we've been collecting some of that data, at least we've got a quarter's worth of data from all of our TA centers about their turnover, and I'd be happy to dig it up for percentages. I don't have it at the top of
Yeah,
my
I think the
mind.
more facts we can have,
But-
I think the better we all can be.
But by and large, I think, or Ellen, but that we do have some people leave for CPS, more people leave the field entirely because of low wages, tends to be what we have seen from the turnover data that we've gotten thus far.
And this is very important, and you also mentioned benefits being another bogey all in itself.
Yeah, like on a very small, like microcosm of a scale. When Lauren came to meet with us, we had maybe like 8 to 10 people present in that meeting. And what was interesting is that 2 of those parents that were in that meeting have left the field. One of them now works at Lighthouse. The other one now works for UC because they had to make more wages in order to keep their families. So that was 2 out of 8 to 10. If you look at a very tiny percentage of just those that we work with. And a lot of our parents that we pulled in are at or below 250% of the federal poverty level. So having that part of the discussion was actually something that constantly comes up. We just haven't tracked those numbers because we don't have access to HR data in some of the same ways that maybe CPS or something do. So it's all been qualitative.
Christine?
So I do just want to be careful because words matter. That I think when you asked your question, you said, and preschool promise is only paying $8 to $12. Like preschool promise isn't operating any centers.
I mean, the centers that they
And so,
in the
and I think
community.
the wage data that we've had of ones that are in 3 to 5 who are getting tuition assistance are higher.
Yeah, we have about a 73% rate of teachers that have received at or above $15 an hour for tuition assistance. And I just made a note that we need to gather that additional data for the QI providers to see where they are, because the data you're citing come from the UC Economics Center study that is over a year old now. So we're continuing to see what and how CPP has been able to impact wage and what we can continue to do to additionally support.
And wages are so critically important, and as a parent, I've seen it. You know, we were at a center that paid low wages, and the turnover of my kids' staff was every couple of months. You know, one of the two teachers was rotating through. We're now at a center that pays very well, and he's had the same two teachers all year. They have no plans to go anywhere. They are a preschool promise provider, so that makes a big difference to his education.
That one anecdote right there,
Not
we've
just
heard
one.
over and over again as people have come in to, as community representatives, or we've heard that as we've spoken with people in the quality improvement space. That one of the biggest barriers to continued quality improvement is hanging on to your people.
And if I may, thank you so much for your insight and passion and presentation. And, we all want to get there. And I think it's encouraging to me when I step back and I think about the fact that what we're really doing here is those providers receiving TA support are building sustainable business models that can afford to pay those wages. And I think that it's an iterative process that we are all learning from together. And yes, we'd like to do it as quickly as we can to get our teachers here, because the work they're doing is so important.
And the great part about that as well is that it's also replicable.
Yeah.
So it can happen over and over again. And one of the things that we've mentioned to Lauren is that there are a lot of different communities that are paying attention to what's happening in Cincinnati. And so for this being kind of a launching point either for them in their own preschool promise initiatives or universal early childhood care initiatives, or for those that actually already have preschool promise or something like it. So there are a lot of different states and cities that are actually keeping an eye on how we model it, for lack of a better way.
Sally?
I have a question about the timeline that you presented on the slide. There were two things that you said. One is that if it's not satisfactorily, if it doesn't meet your satisfaction here, you'll take it to the CPS board. And then by mid-August, you'll decide whether to support the renewal of the levy based on this. I mean, I'm just trying to see if I understand. So is this a give and take situation? Are you saying these are our demands, and if these aren't met, one, we're going to go over the board's head, and two, we're not going to support the levy?
Yeah, so I think one thing that we're trying to bring honest feedback from stakeholders, and people feel really frustrated right now. And I think one thing that people were very frustrated is when we're seeing a $2,000 kind of stipend proposal that was only going to bring people up $1 more, and what the average wages are. And I think it'd be great to see exactly what's in the program, but people really do feel like that is not fulfilling the promise. And so our stakeholders have asked and said to the board of CPS as well, is that we expect this from you. We expect this from you all. We expect this from them. And that is a demand from the stakeholders.
Okay, so this is a demand, just to be clear.
Yeah, I mean, it's a request, but yes, it's something that they feel like is what they voted for, is why they knocked on all these doors, is why they helped get this passed, because that was a promise that was made. So they feel like if that's not being fulfilled, that's a problem. And I think that there is, just to be honest, in the community, there's lots of kind of up in the air how people feel about the next time around, because they feel like it hasn't impacted enough people. So, I think that's conversations that, we aren't deciding it for folks. We're talking with them, figuring out what they want to see, but that is the feedback that people have put forward.
A small question. How did you pick 146 teachers impacted?
So it just comes down to, for example, if 1.6 million was allocated, that's how many teachers you could serve and get them up to about that $15 an hour. So it's just kind of backwards math saying, if you allocated 2 million, it could be that much more. If you wanted to get to 200, you just have to figure out how much would be needed. But if the average wage is right around that $11.25 an hour, that's how much more will be needed in order to get them to that minimum $15, right, close to that $16 an hour on average.
Leisha?
Question. So I was just curious about the recommendations on the timing. So moving from what is proposed as a 2-year pilot to a 2 to 3 month pilot, which is a pretty substantial difference. So I guess I'm just curious kind of what drove you to have a recommendation that was for that short of a window? And given what we're dealing with and trying to learn from, like, what do you think can be learned in such a short time frame when we're talking about wages?
Right, so originally the proposal was a 6-month pilot, but because the timeline has kept shifting and kept moving, and people want to see that a full program get enacted as soon as possible. And so I think there's a lot of concern with folks that we go into another school year and there's still not clarity about how this is going to be a multi-project program, that we're going to almost be at the end of this levy and not have that full promise fulfilled. So, I think the stakeholders feel like, we've been saying this for more than 2 years, and it's taken us this long to get to this point, and we're ready for a full, robust program that's really fulfilling that. And so that is a recommendation that it starts as soon as possible.
But you think that there's going to be enough learnings in a 2-month period to warrant a larger rollout?
I think the way folks feel is that they're sick of waiting, and so while we understand there has to be learnings along the way, that there needs to be a robust program that's happening, through this next school year. So we'll see.
Other questions that people have?
Well, I would just say that I think that we need to talk about what is the right program to do the most for the most people and make the greatest difference. And that to say, this is what we're demanding, there is no negotiation, I am finding it very unsettling to say that there is no further opportunity to discuss what is the best way to accomplish this for the most people. So I'm just putting that out there. It does not feel like we can get to the goal with this kind of, the status the way it is now.
I have, and maybe I'm confused, I did bring the deck. If we go back to the timeline, and I agree with what Sally is saying, and I really appreciate all that's gone into this from your standpoint and the additional work that's been done by CPP. But today is March 20th, and what I see is an approval by the CPP board of a proposal that I'm not sure what we would be proposing. And tomorrow, if that doesn't happen, it's going to CPS's board. So I think we've got to kind of open up here a little bit about, today is today, tomorrow is tomorrow, and I don't see that happening today or tomorrow. And I'm just speaking quite frankly. So I agree, there's got to be a point where we can come together to do the right thing.
And I think folks all along have been open to working hand in hand to try to figure these things out. I just think that what you're hearing from people is they feel like they've been doing this for over 2 years now. And the thought of going into a whole other school year and still not having it figured out is very frustrating to folks. So that is the frustration that we are hearing a lot in the community. And I think the other concern is that the line item for wages this past year was just $500,000. So is there going to be, you guys have to make this decision very soon as to how much money is going to be allocated towards wages. And so those decisions take place now that affect the whole next year. So that's where people, want to see that, putting our money where our mouth is in terms of this is a priority for us, this is important. And I think all along, folks have been willing to be flexible, but I think they feel like just it's not good enough yet.
Other comments from people?
I think just back to my initial, I think we as a board need to continue to do more to publicize the results that we have achieved to date, because I think that message is still getting a little lost. I completely agree that we need to be doing more on wages and more quickly, but I also feel like it's not being acknowledged how much Preschool Promise has actually accomplished to date, not only on wages, but on the rest of the program. And so, I know that we continue to work on our marketing campaign, and that might be taking us up for the next conversation. But I just would really appreciate if anybody from the board has other ideas of how we can improve that community messaging. Because while I completely agree there's more to do, a lot has been done. I also, would really encourage all the community groups to, the promise is bigger than just wages, and that we are serving a lot of children and doing a lot of good for the community. And that issue 44 is bigger than Preschool Promise as well. And that CPS is doing a lot of good and a lot of good for the community. And so, I think that picture needs to be acknowledged as well.
And I would just add, just to build upon what Christine's saying, I think we acknowledged the sense of urgency. You said they're sick of it, so of the patients. I think we acknowledge that a lot of work being done on wage. I think we as a board should, maybe it's the finance committee, Cheryl, but we should look at this budgeting cycle, what we can do from a timing perspective. And while we're promoting what we have done, the accomplishments on both sides, CPP and CPS, I think the message going back today is we acknowledge it wholeheartedly. I don't think anybody's disagreeing with the acknowledgement of the issue. I think there's a rub about the tone of the demand, maybe, if I can say. And then I think we have to do a better job in promoting what has been accomplished.
And to be clear, we have a fiduciary responsibility to make prudent decisions on behalf of the taxpayers in this program. And we have to view that very much in balance. This isn't a vacuum. This isn't just, if we just wanted to solve wages. There are unintended consequences to that, interrelationships. And our goal, I believe all of our goals here, is to get there in a sustainable way, creating a business model that absolutely works for everyone. So, yes.
But I think you would see from everything that we presented, is we care about the number of kids that are being served, we care about the neighborhoods that are being served, we care about the whole picture, the whole wages. So it's not one specific thing, but I think that people have felt to date that that piece of the wages has been less fulfilled than some of the other promises.
I think this is the point where we thank you very much for your input. It's very clear that I think there's broad agreement around this table that we need to move more in the direction that you sketch. Whether we will do that to your satisfaction remains to be seen. That I think what I would urge the Finance Committee to do is, against the experience that we have with QI and how that's ramping up. We know that wages is a piece of quality improvement, obviously. With the experience that we have of tuition assistance and how that's ramping up. So what can we do in terms of the wage assistance piece with those other obligations, understanding that we also need to do something in a way that in 2 years' time we can still continue to afford. But that's the kind of work that needs to go on at the committee level, as you really, because you have the ability to wrap your arms around it and grapple with it there in more detail. I fully agree with Christine's point as well, that there are other elements to this, that if this hasn't been successful for certain stakeholders, it has been successful for others. And so that's a piece of the narrative that we need to understand more as well. So again, thank you very much for your passion around this issue. Please know that we share it with you. It's a question of how to get there. So
We're ready to keep working collaboratively.
thank you. So Pastor Tick not being here, I guess, Lakeisha, you're on your own, although, Shiloh, do you want to tee this up at all?
No, I think that Kisa's been in her role about 60 days now, not quite there.
Yeah.
So I've asked her to take a kind of a reflection point of what has occurred thus far, what she's looking forward to work on going forward, and then any additional opportunities for maybe board engagement or other community outreach. So I'll turn it over to you.
Good evening, now it's evening, good evening, everyone. My main purpose is dealing with community engagement as well as the marketing for Preschool Promise. Within the first 30 to 45 days, I had the opportunity to go out into the community and speak with organizations as well as those that have brought the Preschool Promise into the forefront. And what I've noticed is the main conversation is having clear and concise information or data to those organizations. So with that being said, what I have orchestrated thus far is a community engagement plan that will actually speak through the 3 programmatic thrusts of the organization, which is focused on the cost of quality, the tuition assistance, and quality improvement. That is where we're having these conversations with organizations, stakeholders, things that we are all a part of, regardless of what organization or race, religion that you're group that you're a part of. It's about connecting with the partners and having that conversation that is consistent throughout the community. And that is one program, project that has been completed. So that community engagement plan is available for you if you would like to see it. In regards to the marketing campaigns, we have actually we've actually started on that. That will actually engage on April the 1st. That will be through our commuter ads. One is through the hearing part, which on the bus line, if an individual is on the bus, if they are passing past our tuition assistant program provider, that information will scroll upon the screen as well as be heard over the voice-over. Just saying that, I'm using it as an example, Simpies is proud to be a tuition assistant partner with Cincinnati Preschool Promise. You may have the opportunity to join. Call whatever the number may be. So that is one thing. We also have the bus campaign that we are actually rolling out on April the 15th. That will also include quality improvement, how to get the community-based providers involved, as well as enrollment processes. With that, we have social media. Social media is one of the biggest components in our millennials or the way that people communicate, and people fail to realize that is community engagement as well. So we have certain days that we feature things that are important to our organization as well as informative to others. And we also promote jobs as a partnership with QI and TA with the providers. We also have, what else is there? Highlights about our members, and I would love to do a feature of our board members as we're putting the information just so the community can know who you are. We're also celebrating the pastries for preschoolers, and that's also giving the opportunity for the community to understand that we are supporting their business as well. And in that, we transfer over to our website, as we know that some of the information was probably either too much information or too little of information. So on May 4th, we actually have contracted to a minority business owner to assist with the recreation of the website. It will actually have more transparency of our data. It will have more involvement for everyone, and it will be easily to be used for those that need to use the website. As you know, there are some demographics that may not have the accessibility to use the website, but if they do, by going to the library, it should be easy for everyone to use, whether it's on our side as well as the other side. We do have the billboard campaign that we'll be executing in the next couple of weeks. You finally have your billboard, Brittany, in the various communities. And speaking with Bianca, she shared some communities that we need to possibly look at, and I will be working with Florence in regards. So we're making sure that we're at least being more visible and more seen in all the communities in which we live and which we service with the Cincinnati public school. That is it for me.
I'm exhausted, Leticia. And we've been here 60 days. Good job. Debbie has a question, others
No, I have
perhaps.
a comment. I want to thank you for your voiceover on the voicemail. McKeach sounds great.
Oh, thank you.
Preschool Promise voicemail. I called one day and it was not the voicemail we have now. So thank you for updating that.
You're welcome. As well, if you go onto our Facebook page, Brittany had the opportunity to meet with Lincoln Ware. There is a video that gives the information about the conversation about quality improvement. And the reason why I think we're focused, and that for me on the marketing part, to say that we're focused on quality improvement, if we get them involved in quality improvement, we can create a better seat for them to go into the tuition assistant program, which can flow into the grant wage piece into it. It just takes time. Just be patient. We're working on it. Hopefully I'll be here for another 30 days.
Like you said, I would, for one, would welcome having an opportunity to review the community engagement plan that you referenced. So perhaps you could get that to Shiloh to get it out to everybody so that we could see that. I also presume that that has been the kind of the product of the committee's work. You're working with them and so on.
Absolutely.
So, good.
And it will also give you a breakdown. Because I remember from the last board meeting that we discussed, it's giving the breakdown of what community engagement is. As you all know, the marketing plan has already been written and it's already done. Now it's really real fine tuning what community engagement is. Who are we targeting? Who do we want to talk to? And how is it going to be articulated with a clear and concise conversation? And for everyone to say the same thing, no matter who you're talking to, regardless of what economic or social background that you come from or title that you have behind your name. It's something that we should all collectively do on that particular level.
Good, good, good. Thank you. We'll look forward to reviewing that. Christine?
Yeah, I think part of that, it would be really helpful to see some of the different goals of the community engagement, because clearly there's community engagement to get more, kids in seats. There's community engagement for the providers, but there's obviously also this need of community engagement more broadly of Preschool Promise supporters and stakeholder groups.
That is also in there.
Okay, that's great. And I think we've spoken before about, as you say, same message from everyone, having some board member talking points, really helpful because all of us are involved in different areas. And so even if it's every month, here are the 3 or 4 top facts about Preschool Promise or about the work that we're doing right now. It'd be great for us to all have that set of 3 or 4 things that we can say when we're out, in our own communities and doing our own community work.
And to add to that, we also will execute on April the 1st a newsletter that will actually put more highlights on the 3 perspectives that we have, as well as gearing to the providers that achieved by name, not necessarily with the numbers that is on the Promise update. It actually tells you who the individuals are that achieved that particular stars. So it's just time, but it is going to be done by April the 1st.
I'm thinking that this might be a useful topic for us to have, a conversation for us to have with the board the next time we meet in April, pending other things we necessarily must do. But this is something we've been kind of waiting for, and the questions here have been very good, and so I think we could have a good conversation around this. So thank you very much for hitting the ground running, obviously. I cut you off, though, I think.
I was just going to say, I did get an opportunity to participate last week in the pastries for preschoolers, and that was a good opportunity. There was a few nuggets of insights from it, but one I will share from one parent who was a Preschool Promise recipient who was not aware that she was a Preschool Promise recipient. Yeah. And that was a little eye-opening to me. That she knows she gets funding from different people and her kid is getting preschool, but I was a bit of a, man, if someone in our program isn't even fully aware, and I wouldn't be surprised if she's the only parent who doesn't fully get it. But
So, Kristen, let me say, that is one of our newer centers.
Yeah.
They have not been in the program until 2 months yet.
Okay.
And that is one of the reasons why it is so important that we do the family engagement portion of the program. Because if we get families enrolled in the program, if they don't know that they're enrolled in the program, it doesn't really mean anything. And that's why it's important that we go into the centers and we discuss what it is we're doing, and why it is we're doing it, and to make sure that they have an understanding.
I know those who have been around since the beginning have heard us talk about what Denver learned before us. But for newer people, the parents, the same thing, parents didn't know. And so in their second year or third year, I don't think it's possible here, but maybe, they sent like, not bills so much, but well, sort of something like a bill that said.
A reverse bill.
A reverse bill, and this is what your benefit has been, and
We
so
do.
that.
We do.
That,
So
that parents get something like that on that?
Actually, we did do that, and our providers asked us not to, because what happened was.
Oh, they thought they owed something.
Well, no, we had a conflict. Parents kind of felt like, well, this is how much you get paid on our behalf, so this is what you should be doing. And so we did that in the first year, and I apologize for that. It caused a lot of conflict between the centers. And so when we had our luncheon last year, one of the things that our providers asked us was, hey, can you not do that? Because what happens is they don't really understand how it works. They're coming to us saying, well, you get paid X amount on my behalf. Yes, it's okay for my child to stay later.
Yeah.
And so it caused a lot of
Got it. But there may be something we could say or do, but
Yeah,
not
right,
that.
Yeah. I bet those were awkward conversations. Good. Any other comments or questions around this? Good, so Cheryl, turn things over to you.
Oh, for the fun
The
finance
audit,
committee.
yes, exactly
And I'm
right.
flying solo without Hector, so I'll probably be reaching out to some of my finance committee members and maybe Shiloh as needed. But one important item that we do have for approval today is we do have in your board packets, the completed final audit. So we are glad to get that underway. Brian Todd did come from Clark Schaefer Hackett, led the audit, and did present to our finance committee this past 2 weeks ago, 1 week ago. And just a couple of highlights for you, that there were no significant findings in the audit. Financial disclosures and statements are neutral, consistent, and clear. He stated that they encountered no significant difficulties in dealing with management and performing the audit, which is wonderful. And they, all in, was very clean, so very good. I think they appreciated the cooperation of the leader of Shiloh and Hector and the whole team there. They did offer a couple of just non-material suggestions as things to focus on in 3 areas. One was quality improvement, making sure that, that we're thinking about how that process for tracking payments and how they're being received and how they're being used. The second one was cybersecurity, obviously a consideration for all of us, especially those of us in the finance world. We think about it all day, every day, but making sure that we have those programs and systems in place. And then third was disaster recovery and business continuity plan. All of these things Shiloh and the team are actually had already been addressing. It's something that they're continuing to strengthen, and I thought that was a great result. So with that, I don't know, I think everyone's had an opportunity to review it. Are there any questions or comments before we take this rest for a motion to approve the audit?
I just want to clarify that a couple months back, there was a discussion around the audit and some of the language that were in the summary of significant accounting policies, and so we have updated that.
We have updated that, and the goal there was, and I think our friend Debbie noticed it, but it was important because I think the language being used wasn't exactly reflective of the master agreement, and so we did clean it up to make sure that it is exactly there. And once this is approved, incidentally, it will be posted to the website. Lakeisha, you've been doing a great job of cleaning up and updating the website with all the materials, so thank you for that. Any other questions or comments before we take it to vote? Do we have a motion to?
So moved.
Yes, so thank you very much. And a second for that.
Second.
Thank you, Debbie. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Those abstaining? So we approved the audit unanimously based on a motion by Yusuf, seconded by Debbie. Thank you. Several other hands went up too. It was a close time.
It's exciting.
Thank you.
And now I'll point you to also a couple of other pieces of paper in your packet. One is the financials that we receive on a monthly basis. There is one adjustment that I want to make sure we point out. There was a change from January to February, a significant change in the underspend amount, and I'd like to just clarify what that is. There was a $550,000 adjustment due to an error with CPS's tuition assistance calculation. It was a spreadsheet error that was tracking more kids than were really receiving tuition assistance. So Hector has made that adjustment here, and we are aware of it. It's been integrated into that. But I think it's important to learn from those mistakes and certainly note it because of the significant amount. And then the other thing I wanted to point out was we have both the budget versus actual chart that we've had on a monthly basis, but we did ask Hector to create a new chart, which is a little more relative and visual, that shows our progress. Because I know there's so much work ahead of us sometimes. You have to look backwards to know how far you've actually come. And I thought that he did a very nice job of showing for the total Cincinnati Preschool Promise Program since August of 17 to today, what kind of tuition assistance, how many children are receiving. And then that is represented in total by the green bar. In blue is the CPS number. And then in orange is the community provider number. So you can see visually, I hope that you find this useful, that this is something we asked if he would do this on a regular basis. Hopefully find it
Very helpful.
So, and we'll continue to refine that type of reporting. I know most people are visual learners, so pictures are much better than spreadsheets to a lot of folks, and we'll continue with that.
Is there an equivalent of that for quality improvement?
No, I just made a note to think about how to structure that
Yeah, right,
very thing,
right.
absolutely, because that chart would look like this.
Exactly, yeah, that's a big success.
So that's all I had. Are there any questions or comments? All right.
Brittany, we've segued to you.
Awesome, and I'll be brief. I just want to give updates in terms of where we are with number of participants. We currently have 93 community doctor providers that are engaged in quality improvement supports. A breakdown of those numbers: type A, we have 15 providers. Type B, we have 47 providers. Center-based programs, we are at 24 providers, and then through Oakville Schools, we're at 7. We are 1 seat shy of reaching our annual goal of 200 quality preschool seats, which gives us 199 currently. We have a little bit over 3 months to the end of this program here, so I'm confident we'll reach that target.
That's awesome.
I think I was going to hit some of this other stuff, but really quick. We have utilized about $500,000 of the quality improvements funds at this point. I would say just under half of the providers are in non-quality gap areas, a little bit over half are in the gap areas. Any questions about that? No? Next slide, please. This is an idea of the updated date. I actually just recently updated this on Thursday, which was March 14th. So you can see where providers are falling in the quality improvement process map. I wanted to add to this, going over from column 1 to column 2, on average, this was a request from an observer. So I'm just sharing it verbally, it's not up here. But from column 1 to column 2, it's an average of 2 weeks for providers to process through there. From column 2 to column 3, on average, it's about a month. And then from the third column to the final column can range, but at a minimum of 18 months. Questions?
I remember the conversations that we had at executive committee, not this past, but the month before, I believe, was to be able to identify obstacles within those processes distinct to those columns. And have you had any traction in helping in doing that, so as to see what you can do about streamlining
Yes,
those?
and some of the obstacles was in terms of insurance. So we've already provided a resolution for that. We've had about 10 providers who have actually taken us up on that offer, and 5 of those providers have actually submitted their 2 quotes for approval.
Good, good. Other questions on this?
I think there's 29 held up because of insurance, so 10 have taken advantage of it. Is that part of that
Correct.
29, or?
No,
they
they
just
had
do
actually
39?
been doing it, yep.
Do we know why the others have not? Is it timing? Is there something else we need to do for them?
Probably just sending out another email blast.
Okay.
Metrics has been helpful with actually doing phone calls, so that's gonna take a little time. I'm confident we'll get there. There are other initiatives that I'm gonna use. So maybe they won't take advantage of the subsidy, but something else might encourage them to finalize or finish up their application.
Is there overlap, like in the coaching box and at the bottom of the third column and the request for awards, the next one? Are those people are also getting coaching?
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Once coaching starts, it's ongoing.
It's ongoing, okay.
It's ongoing, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Coaching plus for those.
Yes.
Okay.
I think Brittany is being really modest, so I'm going to underscore with particular to the dashboard that we provide to you monthly. If you'll just take a look at the quality improvement box, total star increases for QI providers from February to March, you see pretty substantial growth just from month to month. And again, I continue to underscore that this is not a linear process, but I do hope that you see by reflection of those numbers and the increase of those numbers that the wheel is spinning, and we are really moving forward in a very positive way in that regard. So, well done, Brittany.
It's just going backwards.
I think
So-
we've made a lot of progress
Yeah.
in this area
Yeah.
over the last, when did you come, Brittany?
March.
Yes, the last year.
This has been the success of the year, it
Yes,
seems to me.
Yeah.
You know, the rest of it, we're
Not
kind of
only is it
continuing.
successful because of what you're doing, it's also successful because we understand it better and we can say, yay. I mean, it was already doing great, and it's not only doing better, but we can cheer you on because we really understand. So that's on us, but we understand it.
What would be like the total population of providers that,
Could be eligible for quality improvement.
yeah,
I would say roughly 400 additional to what we currently have in the pipeline.
400, and you're showing 93 currently? I mean, the dashboard, am I saying this right? So a quarter of them are in the program right now.
Correct.
That's great. And what would encourage, I mean, what if they all showed up tomorrow?
We'll be in trouble.
We would be out of. So, I mean, is that, I mean, can you say you can take 10 a month? Could you take another 5 a month, or are you maxed right now?
We set a target in terms of financially, how many new programs we would be able to support annually, so 35. Even though I surpassed that this program year, our first program year, we didn't have nearly as many providers engaged, so this year allowed to approve a lot more than 35. But in terms of budgeting, 35 is like the maximum number annually.
On top of.
On top of, right.
Intake 35. Yeah. And does anybody not want to join this program? I mean, why? I mean, is
Unfortunately, yes. When I meet with some of those providers individually, I can persuade them otherwise, but it's just one of me. But there are providers out there that do not want to engage for a number of reasons.
whatever, you know, I was just curious.
Building on Tony's question, I find myself wondering, of those 400 providers not in the pipeline, my guess is that some of them would be in quality deserts and some would not be, and we would want to prioritize those who are in quality deserts. Some would have the capacity for more seats, and so we would kind of want to prioritize them. So the more bigger bang for your buck kind of thing. So do you have somewhere a kind of strategy map that says, you know, kind of as you filter that 400 down by asking these kinds of questions, who the targets are that you really want to go after to try to tee them up for QI work in the future?
So, no, but you've given me some strategies for moving forward with recruitment. However, for folks that already have shown interest into QI, I do use a priority list just as one that you shared in terms of how to get them approved or when to get them approved. So we look at the quality gap areas, student capacity, where are they with their step in the quality level.
Right.
So we look at those things prior to submitting for approval.
Good. Part of the reason I'm asking the question is against the background of the other conversation we had about wage, that we have a finite amount of money, and what we've got to do is model sort of different financial commitments to the different buckets of work and see how we can optimize this in a realistic and sustainable way, So we don't want to say, well, we can't possibly invest that in wages because we need to hold it all for QI work, but we can't spend it all in QI work because we don't have the capacity to be able to support it, right? So how is it that we can best think about all of those things simultaneously? So that's helpful, thank you.
I think it may be a question to delve in further, maybe not in the board meeting, but we're significantly underspending in the QI work. So financially, we have a lot more capacity. And so and we've been told that the coaching organizations have a lot more capacity. So we have to figure out what would, if we had a massive application, why would we be limited? So I don't necessarily want to get into that today, but if 100 applied, we have the money, what might be the things that would hold up taking them on? Again, not for today, but I really don't understand quite yet why we would have a limit at this moment in time.
And I think you bring up a great point, which is very timely because we're getting ready to go through budget process and all of those discussions will be transpiring both at the FNAC and then up to the full board, absolutely. I did just pull up a couple of slides because I've been playing around with our data in terms of various breakdowns by providers and thought that this might be of interest to the board. So the first slide here demonstrates. It is not. This is brand new. Sorry. Here, you don't have to crane your neck.
Come over here with us.
But we broke it down by provider breakdown by quality gap area in tuition assistance. So for example, in the first upper left-hand pie chart, you see that 39% of tuition assistance providers are in quality improvement, are in quality gap areas, sorry. In QI, we currently have 55% that are in quality gap areas. And then for the teacher grants, we have 36%. Not surprising that that looks very similar to TA because as you know, that those are the providers that are working that are currently eligible for the teacher grants. But I thought that this was of interest and we may even want to aggregate it and really see as a full-blown CPP program, what's the breakdown to quality gap and not, as obviously that's been an important criteria of ours. Yep, sure, go ahead.
So is that of the providers that we support, 37% are in the quality gap, or is that all the providers in the quality?
That's of those that are actually in tuition assistance or in quality improvement. So it's not the whole universe of providers.
Those are the ones that are in our program, so to speak. Okay.
So an overlay of population, if we find out that 20% of the population, I mean, that would make a difference, is where is, compared to what? Not just the numbers we have.
Right, yep, absolutely. But we're continuing to work to get better and better at unpacking and understanding our own data better. So this is by, there we go. This is provider breakdown by site type. So we talk oftentimes about multi-sites, parochial schools, single sites, and family child care. So again, the upper left is tuition assistance, distribution by site type. The upper right is QI by site type, and you can see that we have a much higher overall distribution of family child care in our QI and a larger percentage of it in multi-site for TA at the moment. And then again, similarly, the teacher grants are reflectives, quite like the tuition assistance, simply because they are the eligible providers at the moment. And then finally, we have it broken down by star rating. As you might imagine, in tuition assistance, we have 3s, 4s, and 5s. And in the teacher grants, same deal, 3s, 4s, and 5s. And the QI by star rating are the 0, 1s, and 2s. So I think what would be most fascinating, actually, and most informative is to actually really combine the TA providers and the QI providers to see where the distribution is. From looking at this information, I felt reasonably confident that we have a nice distribution across both provider types about the star ratings and then also within quality gap areas. So even a year and a half into the school year, I feel like we've made, like if we did these for, this point in time last year versus this year, I suspect they would look quite a bit different, and we've definitely built that out and it looks much more comprehensive. So, any questions about those? Was this type of analysis helpful for you going forward? Okay.
And I think, Charlotte, this is very helpful, but even the trend you mentioned is good to show.
Right, yeah, absolutely.
I'm not sure it's something we need to see every month.
Yeah.
No,
but these snapshots. from time to
Snapshots,
time.
exactly.
And my guess is you'll think of other ways of taking snapshots, as you just said, combining TA and QI.
Right.
Do you have to stay back here so I can see your?
No, I'm done with PowerPoint. I only have a few high points on the executive director's report. You heard a lot from Flo about her numbers already. You've heard about Britt about her numbers. I think it's exciting that we actually have 95 providers in tuition assistance, 52 of whom are with community providers. Those numbers continue to grow, which is exciting. The almost 3,000 students we've served through tuition assistance since the program inception is pretty exciting, I think. And then the fact that Britt is just one seat shy of meeting the goal of 200 new quality seats for fiscal 19 is really exciting. All told, and I think I'm starting to think about the way we communicate about our work, because we've traditionally done it in work streams, tuition assistance, quality improvement, wage, when in fact we're all this one big happy CPP family. So why aren't we thinking more about that larger narrative? I think one great story to tell is that we're currently working with 188 providers through CPP. That's both with tuition assistance and quality improvement, but that's a substantial investment quickly. Let's see, I think we mentioned this, but if not, United Way has graciously waived their administrative fee for 2019, so they did waive that in 2018, that's $200,000. They just voted, I want to say a couple weeks back, to waive the fee for 2019, so wonderful partnership there. We've had significant community updates and presentations. I'm regularly attending CPS board meetings and Cincinnati Promise Forward board meetings to provide updates to keep the lines of communication open, which is terrific. We recently met with the African American Chamber regarding shared services, and I think have some opportunities to work with our providers going forward with that. I think I sent out a notice to this board about having Emily Lewis move on from Metrics, so we did talk through what that transition strategy was at the executive committee last week, and feel very confident that we're in a good position there, and that there will also likely be an opportunity for further reduction in fee, which they've been wonderful partners for us, so thank you.
It also bears saying that we discussed on this topic at the executive committee how it is that we'll monitor how that goes going forward, so that we don't end up with some glitch along the way that was unexpected.
Right, absolutely. Additional presentations, Father Graham and I presented to the Tocqueville Society for Tuesday luncheon. As we mentioned, Brittany was on Lincoln Ware. We had a community issues forum at the end of February, which was very well attended. So those are just a couple highlights there. Upcoming opportunities, we do have our second annual tuition assistance provider luncheon tomorrow at 11:30 for anyone that would like to come. We have our second annual postcards for providers at Fireside Pizza on April 4th, and I can send out some key dates just to give you a little reminder. And then lots of committee meetings looking on into March. So all told, I think that we're really hitting a good rhythm here, and we're off to having a nice closeout to the second year.
Thank you. Observers' comments.
Well, I mean, it's definitely, I guess it should definitely be considered an observation. I guess over the last couple of meetings, you know, certainly, I guess, echoing the comments of the board today, I'm somewhat concerned about the communication in terms of, from some of the partners that we heard today, P40EC as well as CPP. It seems to me that there's, I think, some simple solutions around how that is happening in terms of information sharing, and I think Christine has offered several options in terms of the website and so forth, but I think just in terms of, you know, Shiloh, correct me if I'm wrong, but the committees that actually work on this is also open for participation. So, you know, folks can come and be a part of those discussions, or okay, that's good to know. I thought that was the case, but I think that there's just an additional piece to sort of lead around, you know, positive intent with regard to making sure that some of those conversations are happening in those committee meetings, and that we're able to work through some of those questions and concerns versus them always coming to the board level. So that's a little concerning, just in terms of how we can maybe approach that differently. And I know that those meetings are on the website, and that's perfectly open, right? I would also, just out of curiosity, so some of the meetings for the P4EC group, are you all aware of when those occur regularly, or is that only like by invitation?
It's by invitation.
Okay.
Sometimes we get notice, sometimes it depends on the meeting.
I reached out to them since they've been coming pretty regularly, so I'm going to be attending the April 20th meeting.
Okay.
Just to listen and be my continuous presence.
Yeah, okay, that's good.
And that's their next meeting that
That's
you know
their next
of?
meeting.
Thank you.
Okay, April 20th.
Vera?
I have a couple of things. First of all, I think Shiloh's graphs tonight would be wonderful to share at the next CPS board meeting to celebrate and show the great successes that the CPP board is having moving forward. I will share the equity plan with the policy committee, so just we have transparency and communication going both ways. And I did want to voice regarding the P4EC presentation group. Our board went after the presentation that it's more of a child care, not a preschool. So our interest is in preschool, and all our monies will be going towards preschool age 3 and 4-year-olds.
Can you say more about that in terms of their?
When the presentation, now I've heard it twice, it talks about all teachers, and when they presented to the CPS board, it came across more of not just serving as 3 and 4-year-olds, which is the preschool promise, but also trying to get the wages up for like toddler teachers and across the board. And that's why our board wants to be clear that we are focused on preschool. That's our intention.
And it's certainly yes, all of us.
And one of our concerns has been what we do in the whole pre-K ecosystem.
Yes.
If we incentivize people over here, it's rather like folks, going from family care providers or family child care providers to CPS because there's more money over there, right?
And I do agree. I think it would be wonderful if we had the data of what Lauren was talking about, and they had asked, when blanket statements are made that CPS takes all the employees, it would be wonderful to see that data, because that's not what I see on my side. I wish it was, because I can't. But that would be wonderful to, share that knowledge so there's not misconceptions out there. And just commend the team because the presentations tonight were.
Yeah,
Yeah, thank you.
thank you very much.
You guys are awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, observers. This is a rare thing. Anybody got some jokes to tell? Or we could just entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, Cheryl, and a second. Who did that? Sally, thank you. All right. All those in favor, please signify by getting up and walking out. That's you too.
Yes.